The author of Hot Women Rock, How to Discover Your Midlife Entrepreneurial Mojo. And I just love talking to other entrepreneurs about how they got to where they are now and how much they're loving it. So I'm sitting up a bit straighter today, and you'll understand why when I introduce my guest. She's affectionately been dubbed the difficult people whisperer, and that makes her laugh a bit. She really teaches courageous, conscious communication skills, and I'm going to be asking her a bit about body language, as she's one of the top 10 body language experts at globalgurus.com. She's an international communications trainer, speaker, best-selling author, and CEO of the strategic communications firm Competitive Edge Communications. And she's also published 7 books. Her latest is the Amazon bestseller, Mindfulness in Action. And a perennial favorite of hers is What Your Body Says and How to Master the Message, which has been translated into 7 languages and is used in universities all around the world. She's also the host of eWomen Network's The Autoimmune Hour podcast. And her first children's book is coming out in May, and that's called Pinky Chenille and the Rainbow Hunters. Oh my goodness, there's so much for us to talk about today. I'm not sure where we're going to start. So welcome, Sharon Sayler. How are you?
Oh, it's my pleasure to be with you here, Pat.
She's looking very elegant in the back. I'm just welcoming you into my kitchen today.
I'm on the road again, so that's, I can't claim credit for it.
Okay, so where should we start? Let's go back in your career, because you didn't start out being this body language guru. How did your career start out?
Well, if we want to go all the way back, it started out with a variety of strange jobs. My first job was working in a floral shop, which transformed to working in a lumber yard, which then transformed to working as a PBX operator. And some people might not remember that. Some of us, where you had to plug it in and say hello, and I'll plug you in over here.
I worked one of those. I was working in an office, and it wasn't my job, but we used to have to relieve the operator when she wanted to go to lunch or have a break. And I remember one day I'd run out of cords. I had, or we call them dolly's eyes, the numbers that flick down. I had 1 cord left, and I called one of the other women and said, what do I do when I run out of cords?
I know. I'm sure some people don't remember that time. But
it was fun though, although I did get a few electric shocks. Okay, carrying on, where did you go from there?
Well, I went from there, and I enjoyed the job, but it was just, to me, there was more to life than switching cords and saying hello. Although then I went back to school. I actually hadn't gone to university up until that time. And I went back to school. I had this moment where my first son was born, and I wanted to spend more time with him, but also wanted to keep enriching myself. So I went back and got my university degree in all things graphic design and marketing.
Okay.
Yeah. And I still wanted to be able to spend time with my son. And so I just started to pick up, small jobs for people. It was like, oh, can you do a business card? Can you do a brochure? I'm like, sure, I can do those things. Well, within a couple of years, that morphed into what people like to say, a real business. And I did that for a number of years, doing graphic design and marketing. And also that branched out into copywriting, writing annual reports for people and things like that. So I can't really say it was planned. It just morphed.
Yeah, and so many women I talk to, their careers have kind of evolved. They're somewhere completely different to where they started out. So how did it evolve from there?
So I really realized I enjoyed writing. And as time went on, I'd been doing the graphic design marketing company for about a decade. And there again, I'm a person who's just innately curious and easily bored. And I had the opportunity to sell the company, so I did. And that was about the same time I went through a divorce after a long marriage. And it was, a time of reflection. I think when you get all of a sudden there's a big upheaval in your life, you just like, a time of reflection going on. What else should I change? I've got this opportunity just to make a wholesale change.
Yeah.
And it was that time. My friends know that when I get sort of that way, or I was even a little, sad and down in the dumps, they say, teach Sharon something, take her somewhere, take her to a class. So a couple of my friends kidnapped me and took me to an NLP class over a weekend. It was all about self-assessment, self-awareness. And NLP, just for those who aren't aware, it's neuro-linguistic programming. I know it's pretty popular over in the UK as well. Yeah. But anyway, they took me to that class, and lo and behold, I was so intrigued that I decided to go for their entire program, and ended up a couple of years later as a master practitioner in NLP. And as my friend said to me, look at you, I take you for one weekend, I sit there for the 16 hours, and all of a sudden you run with it. And you completely, but it was during that time that I met a person, his name's Michael Grinder. He's one of the foremost authorities on nonverbal classroom management. And we just clicked. And I started doing some graphic design, designing book covers for him, helped him develop a website. This was, early web days. And we just clicked. And then pretty soon I'm starting to edit his books. And then I'm starting to co-write his books. And it was just that mentorship. We've been friends. It's now become sort of friend to friend instead of mentor-mentee. And that's been 20 years ago that I just started mentoring with him, and my life took a radical change to understanding behavior, body language, and communication skills.
And this is John Grinder's brother, is it?
Yes, it's John Grinder's brother.
Yeah.
It's interesting. John does from, as Michael likes to say, from the inside out, and Michael says he does from the outside in.
Yeah, because he's got a lovely model of cat and dog people.
Yes.
And I love that, and I use it to help a lot of my clients, to help them to understand about how they can take control back.
Oh, isn't that so funny? Because you'll see, that was one of the books I helped him write.
Oh, wow. I just love cat and dog people because it's such a simple concept. People get it really quickly. So fantastic. We'll have to talk more about him another time. So,
yeah, but that model has been so useful to so many people in understanding why they might say so-and-so is a difficult person. And then you describe they're a cat person, and they go, oh, I get it. Because as Michael likes to say, there's ranges of cats and dogs. And so maybe this person who says that other person's difficult might be like what we call a golden retriever, a real, a real friendly, real community, go along to get along kind of dog, right? And some people are like that. They're the ones that bring the cards and cupcakes to work, and they want to make sure everybody's okay and everybody's happy. And then the other person might be on the other extreme, like a Siamese cat.
Yeah.
Which we have some real friendly cats, but then we have some cats more like the lines of a Siamese cat that are a little more difficult. And that's why we get into this conversation about difficult people.
I love it. It's just such a simple model. I think my last boss, who was the kind of trigger point for me leaving what I was doing before, I think he was one of those Egyptian furless cats, He just really didn't care. But let's leave that for now and tell me where you went from there.
Well, where I went from there was, goodness, I still am in contact with Michael, and we collaborate all the time. But after a while, in his wisdom, because I was really happy there, and I wasn't unhappy, shall I say, but he sort of pushed me out of the nest, Sharon, fly, and started giving me projects on my own. Like, here, you take this client, you go work that with them, you go with this. And pretty soon that just morphed into my own style. And one of the things Michael is known for is K through 12 teachers working in the elementary world and the education world a lot. And I liked it. I really enjoyed it. But when I started working with professional women on my own, I was just like, oh, I'm home. It was a different feeling. You can like something, really enjoy it. But then you get around another group and you're just like, oh, no, I'm home. And that's what happened. I started working with some professional women. And one night I was down in Florida, and I had 9 women in what I like to do, what I call salons. And we just all greeting around in somebody's table, and just start chatting about what's going on. And it just dawned on me like, oh, no, this is where I'm supposed to be. I just felt this overwhelming. And was about a decade ago that it just transformed into working with mostly professional women. And oddly, men start coming too, but usually at a wife or girlfriend or a female coworker going something like, you need to go talk to Sharon.
Yeah. And the body language side of this, did that just sort of naturally come out from the NLP work?
Well, it came out from the NLP work and Michael's work with the nonverbal classroom management.
Right.
It was very important to understand as a teacher in front of the classroom, how you can be creating a chaotic environment or a peaceful environment just by what you're doing with your nonverbal communication. Now, nonverbal communication is a little bit bigger than body language, meaning you could have visual signs in the back of the room that telling kids what to do so you're not having to remind them all the time. So think of it as a broader world as the whole environment is sending a message. Mm. I enjoy that and I love to teach that, and I teach that a lot in my corporate world. But when I had the opportunity to write a book, John Miley and Sons came to me and they were talking and we shared, one of the things I enjoy is not teaching people to read body language, but teaching you what messages is your body language sending. So it's that old NLP adage is the message you sent is the response you got back. And that's where my body language work comes in. It's like, what messages are you sending? And then if you get a response different, okay, let's examine the body language. Was there an incongruency between your words, what was coming out of your mouth and what your body was saying?
Yeah, and those messages are so powerful that people are more likely to disregard the words and see what your body's saying.
They always disregard the words, even if you're in a close relationship with someone. Luckily, someone you're close to might say, is that what you meant?
Yeah.
And you'll go, what are you talking about? A case point is a wonderful woman came to me after I did a speech at a women's group, a large entrepreneurial women's group. She came up to me afterwards and she said, I'm really worried. I'm worried I'm going to be fired. What am I doing wrong? I don't know, give me a second here.
Yeah.
So we met afterwards and we chatted a while, and I realized that she is a high systems, high process thinker, meaning that everything has an order and a category, and she likes to put it into patterns. And some of the ways you can figure that out is when you ask somebody a how question, if you see them go internal, you kind of get this glazed look over their eyes and you see them go internal. And what happens then is, I'm like, okay, but she made this face. I'm going to take my glasses off, and I can't quite make it as dramatically. But she would squint her eyebrows, and she would get this furrow in her forehead. When you asked her how she'd go. She was thinking so hard. She's so highly committed to people. So she would be on the dog spectrum. She's so highly committed to people, and you ask her a how question, she had to solve it.
Yeah.
But she didn't know she was making that face. Now, if you make this kind of face, sometimes people think you're mad at them or you're disgusted with them. And once I took a picture of her, I just grabbed my cell phone really quick while she was making that face, and I snapped it. And I showed her the cell phone. I said, now, if you saw this face, what would you think? And that was the light bulb. That's all she needed. She's like, what am I doing? And I explained to her, you have the best of intentions. You want to solve this person's problem. We just learned to make a more neutral face.
Yeah.
So I texted her the picture, but really she didn't even have to learn to make a more neutral face. She went to her boss. She showed him the picture. She said, I went to this body language expert. She told me that I'm just trying to solve your problems. They both had a good laugh, and now it's not a big deal that she makes that face because he knows it's not about him and he's not being judged.
Yeah. These things, these cues are just so important. We could talk about this for hours. So this is Pat Duckworth, the author of Hot Women Rock, How to Discover Your Midlife Entrepreneurial Mojo. And today I'm talking to Sharon Sayler. So Sharon, I can see this kind of pattern of you developing your writing skills as you were going through the early part of your career. What are the other skills and capabilities that you've brought with you from the early part of your working career into what you do now?
Well, definitely as a PBX operator, I learned how to communicate with people. I learned how to get along and listen for cues. I think it's really important that listening has been one of the main patterns throughout my whole career, and started with PBX operator, learning to listen because you have no visual cues, obviously. And then even through raising my kids and understanding what is the message behind the message. And to me, that's very important, that somebody can say something and I might have a different interpretation of the words.
Yeah.
And so it's important to understand, what are they really trying to say to me? So listening is one of the key critical skills that I've brought in and including into the work I do today, because I wouldn't be able to help people understand what they're doing if I wasn't able to just create what I call critically listening for what is the story behind the story.
Yeah, absolutely. And what were the challenges for you in setting up in business for yourself? What skills did you have to acquire?
Oh, wow. I have to be honest. The first one that came to me was my own self-doubt. Like, who am I? Who am I to do this? I mean, I was a great PBX operator, but who am
Good job
I?
you moved on from that.
Yeah, absolutely. But when I first started and I first decided to go into business myself, especially in the graphic and design business, it was like, who am I to tell people, what best logo to use or things like that. And I still, to these days, I work and I say, okay, Sharon, you have the skills. You're very good at what you do. You know what you do. And it just develops over time that you realize, look, this is what you're called to do. So I find a lot of women I work with have that same question of, who am I? And should I be telling people, sometimes I had this woman say, should I be telling people what to do? And I said, you're not telling them what to do. You're offering suggestions based on your huge amount of knowledge.
Yeah, I had a very similar discussion actually in the last of these interviews that I did with nutritional therapist Nikki Williams. And she was saying this whole bit about women in business getting over that self-doubt, because often women don't charge properly for their services because they're kind of saying, well, this is just me, I'm offering you this service. It's not as much worth as much as somebody else's, and you've really got to get over it that you're offering something valuable.
Oh, absolutely. But I find often the women experts that I meet are more of an expert and they're more educated and have more to offer than a lot of the guys I meet who profess to be quite an expert. They're out there and they're just, it's that courageous part. It's just like, have the courage to trust what you know. And I find guys go out there and they just trust what they know. And women are like, maybe I just need one more class to know more.
Yeah.
And so I encourage you just to trust what you know, and you'll help to the amount that you can help. And here I am at this part of my career, and I'm continuing to learn new stuff. Every day I have new insights. I'm like, wow, I didn't realize that. Right now I'm on a whole new path in my life, and it's like, wow, this is so exciting. I didn't even understand that. Even constructing the children's book that I wrote that's coming out.
Yeah.
That was a whole learning process about communication too. How do you write something very interesting in a very few words?
Yeah. And is Pinky Chanel, is this going to be like a self-help book or is it a fictional book?
It's a fictional book. Yeah, it's a fictional book, but the story goes along the lines of getting along and team building. And in my world of competitive edge communications, I work a lot with teams to make them more functional. And this story just, here again, it's one of those things, trusting it. I don't know if this has ever happened to you or anyone you know, but 4 years ago, before my granddaughter was born, I woke up in the middle of the night, about 2 a.m., just start. And there was Pinky Chanel and this whole world in my head. Where it came from, I have no idea. I had never thought about writing a children's book. Crazy me. I get up, run to the computer, go to one of those URL places, and oh my gosh, Pinky Chanel is not taken. So I buy the URL and off I'm running on a whole new pattern. But anyway, it's taken me 4 years. My granddaughter's 4 years old now, and the book's finally coming out. But what an amazing combination, because my graphic design skills came into it, my marketing skills have come into it, my communication skills and writing skills have all come into it. So it's just to me, my whole career has about been building on top of everything I already know and taking a chance. Like some people say, well, why did you write a children's book? I don't know, it was just there. And I really wanted to do it for my granddaughter, so that was an extra push too. But as Pinky Chenille started to develop, what happened was people were reading it, because I really started to write it just for my granddaughter. And my son and other people were like, well, this is such a cute book, you should do more with it. And so that's how the whole Pinky Chenille developed. But like I said, it just, all the skills that I've learned throughout my life have led me here.
Fantastic. So if you were giving one tip to new entrepreneurs about either their behavior or their capabilities, what would you be saying to them?
Trust yourself.
Yeah.
And act as if, which is different than fake it till you make it, by the way. Because what happens if somebody will say, oh, just fake it till you make it. Problem is your unconscious brain is going, oh, we're just faking it, it doesn't matter. But act as if. And if you know someone in your world, I'm actually very shy and introverted, but people don't believe that because I'm so passionate about what I do. I can get up in front of hundreds of people and talk because it comes from my heart. But part of that, being able to do that, was I know a very extroverted person in my world. And I was going, what are the skills he uses to be able to talk to anybody, anytime, anywhere? And I just stepped as if I had those skills. And lo and behold, I had those skills. I just had to act as if for a couple times. I'm like, I can do this. Yeah, I can do it.
And do you know, that's how I use the cat and dog skills as well, is that I say to people, if you're naturally a dog, that's okay. But there are times when you need to be a bit more cat. So what can you learn from the cats that you can do a bit of when you need to?
Exactly.
And, you know, for the cats, it's, well, you know, sometimes you need to be a little bit dog.
They may not listen to you, and that's okay.
That's the whole thing with cats.
Right. But knowing that, you know, there are people you're meant to serve and people you're not meant to serve. I served as Michael Port's communication director for 2 years in that whole frame that I miss telling you. And one of his things was always, there are people you're meant to serve and people you're not meant to serve. And that's okay. Yeah,
absolutely. Not everybody can love you, and that's fine, because you'd be very busy if they did. So it's all good. Sharon, anybody listening, if they want to know more about Pinky Chenille or any of the services you offer, how can they get in contact with you or see your website?
Oh, my website is Sharon Sayler. My last name is spelled Sayler, so SharonSayler.com. And the Pinky Chenille website is just pinkychenille.com. Right now, you'll only see the cover of the book, but stay tuned, because once we launch in May, it'll be full blown with everything from little activities for kids, things for teachers or parents to use with their children. So I'm really looking forward to developing the Pinky Chenille into more than just a fun children's book, but an entire learning method for children to learn to get along and work as teams.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for talking to us today. It's been such a pleasure.
Oh, I loved it. It's great. I love you too, Pat. Thank you so much.
So if this was Pat Duckworth, the author of Hot Women Rock, I will put my contact details below here. And if you haven't already got your copy of Hot Women Rock, you will see the information at the end of this video. Look forward to seeing you again next time and hearing from the next great entrepreneur.